John Ronald Reuel Tolkien was born on January 3, 1892 in Bloemfontein, South Africa. But soon after, when he was very young, his family moved back to England. His father, Arthur, had passed away when Ronald was only 4 years old, so he and his younger brother, Hilary, were raised by their mother, Mabel. Tolkien lived in a small house with a big garden. He loved nature and often went on long walks. His favorite place to explore was the nearby woods. There, he would imagine all sorts of creatures, giants, fairies, and tiny elves living in the trees and flowers. This love for nature and adventure stayed with him all his life. When he was just a boy, Tolkien had a special talent: he loved to read. His mother taught him to read and write at a very young age. Soon, he was reading books about kings, knights, and dragons. His imagination grew bigger every day, and he started to write his own stories. These stories were filled with wonderful creatures and magical lands. But as he grew older, Tolkien's life became more serious. He went to school and later to university. At Oxford University, he studied languages and he became very good at them. He loved old languages, like Old English, Old Norse, and Finnish. He even created his own languages. These languages were full of strange sounds and beautiful words. He was fascinated by how words could tell stories. One day, while working as a professor at Oxford University, something happened that would change his life forever. He was grading papers when he wrote a sentence that began with the words, "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit." Tolkien didn't know it at that moment, but this simple sentence would start a great adventure. The sentence came to him out of nowhere, and he couldn't stop thinking about it. A hobbit was a small, peaceful creature who lived in cozy homes under the ground. They were different from humans because they didn't like to fight or go on big adventures. They preferred quiet, happy lives with lots of good food and comfort. Tolkien was curious about the hobbit and wondered what kind of story he could tell about them. He began writing a story about a hobbit named Bilbo Baggins. Bilbo was just like other hobbits, he loved peace and quiet. But one day, something strange happened. A group of dwarves came to his home and asked him to join them on a journey to recover their lost treasure. Bilbo didn't want to go. He was afraid of adventure. But the dwarves were very persuasive, and after some time, Bilbo agreed to go with them. On their journey, Bilbo faced many dangers. He met trolls, goblins, and a dragon named Smaug. He also found a magic ring, which would later become very important. The story of Bilbo's adventure was full of surprises and excitement. Tolkien's story about Bilbo Baggins became very popular. People loved the idea of a small, ordinary hobbit going on such a big adventure. Tolkien finished the book, and it was called The Hobbit. It was published in 1937 and became an instant success. Readers loved the world that Tolkien had created, full of strange creatures and magical lands. Many wanted to know more about the world of hobbits, elves, dwarves, and dragons. But Tolkien wasn't finished yet. He had a bigger story in his heart. He had more to tell about the world he had created. He began working on a new book, which would be much longer and more complex than The Hobbit. This story would tell of great wars, powerful rings, and the struggle between good and evil. Tolkien called this new story The Lord of the Rings. In The Lord of the Rings, the main character was not Bilbo Baggins, but a young hobbit named Frodo Baggins. Frodo was given the task of destroying a magical ring that had the power to control all the other magical rings. This ring was very dangerous. Whoever controlled it could rule the world. But the ring was very evil, and it would try to take over the person who held it. Frodo's journey was long and difficult. He had to travel far from his home in the peaceful Shire to destroy the ring in the fires of Mount Doom. Along the way, Frodo was joined by many friends: Aragorn, a brave human; Legolas, an elf; Gimli, a dwarf; and Gandalf, a wise wizard. Together, they fought against evil creatures and powerful enemies. But the greatest enemy was the Dark Lord Sauron, who wanted to use the ring to take control of Middle-earth. The story of Frodo and his friends was filled with danger and adventure. But it was also about friendship, bravery, and the choice between good and evil. Frodo and his friends learned that even the smallest person could change the world, and that the fight between good and evil was not always easy. Writing The Lord of the Rings took a long time. Tolkien spent many years working on it. He wrote thousands of pages and created many languages and maps. He wanted the world of Middle-earth to feel real, like it had a long history and rich cultures. He wanted his readers to believe that hobbits, elves, and dragons could exist. Finally, in 1954, the first part of The Lord of the Rings was published. It was called The Fellowship of the Ring. It was followed by The Two Towers and The Return of the King. These three books became a great success, just like The Hobbit. People all over the world loved the stories, and Tolkien became famous. Tolkien's books were not just about adventures. They also contained deep ideas about life, friendship, and the nature of good and evil. Tolkien believed that stories like his could help people understand the world better. His love of language and his passion for creating new worlds inspired many writers who came after him. Tolkien's works have had a big impact on the world of literature and imagination. Many movies, video games, and books have been inspired by his stories. His books have been translated into many languages, and millions of people read them every year. The world of Middle-earth still lives on in the hearts of readers and fans all over the world. Tolkien passed away on September 2, 1973, but his stories continue to live on. He left behind a legacy of great adventure and deep wisdom. His love for storytelling, language, and nature still inspires people today. And so, the young boy who loved to dream in the woods, creating stories about elves, dragons, and hobbits, grew up to become one of the greatest writers the world has ever known. His books remind us that with imagination and courage, even the smallest person can make a big difference.